welcome back to Cracking the Cryptic. Now, the eagle-eyed will notice that I'm still on my laptop today. I'm still on the road. I am slightly less jet-lagged, but still quite tired. But I got an email from one of my favourite sources of emails yesterday. Aad from the Netherlands wrote to me to tell me that Aad Van De Wetering has created a new Sudoku puzzle. Now, Aad Van De Wetering has produced some masterpieces. And we've covered 2 or 3 in videos on the channel. They've always been extremely popular, so I hope this will be no exception. And it's called T Sudoku. I'm going to talk you through the rules in a moment, but just to mention, do get yourselves over to Instagram if you have the chance and have any interest in cryptic crosswords, because Cracking the Cryptic is now on Instagram and does a clue every day, and that's proving reasonably popular by the people who visit it. Now, T Sudoku, how does this work? And again, this is a totally new variant to me. So the rules of T Sudoku are that the T shapes have to contain firstly different digits. So in this T shape here, we couldn't have a 6 in this square, for example. All of the 5 cells have to be different, and they have to be the same. So whatever we put in this T shape has to also appear in this T shape, not in the same order, not reflected or anything, but just we have to have the same collection of digits in both T shapes. Now, there is one other rule, and that is, let's look at the 6 as an example. In the orthogonally connected white squares, these 3 here, they would have to be greater than a 6. So wherever we place a digit in the T shapes, we look at the orthogonally connected white squares, and they must be greater than whatever we put in the T shape. And that's all I know. I'm very much looking forward to trying it. As usual, if you want to have a go, and I do recommend it, click on the link under the video. That will take you to our webpage where you can play a lot. And with that, let's have a look. And I'm going to put in some pencil mark 6s in the bottom right. And I can see immediately, look, these 2 squares, we know they've got to be greater than 6, but they can't be as big as 9 because there's already a 9 in the box, so they must be 7 and 8. This one, I guess, must be 7, 8, or 9. 7, 8 here. Oh, and I see. Right. Now let's have a look down column 9. You can see we've got 5 digits in column 9, and we need a 4, 6, 7, and 8. Well, what can this square be? There's a 6, 7, and 8 already in the box, so that square's got to be a 4. This square has to be a 7, and these 2 squares at the bottom have to be 6 and 8 in some order. Okay, so we're off and running, sort of. The 2 here, look, now is forced upwards in this box, and these 2 squares have got to be 3 and 5. Now we can make our first use of this sort of rule about orthogonal connections to disambiguate this 3. If I put the 5 in here, this square would be a 3, and that's going to breach the rules of the puzzle. So this is a 3, this is a 5. And now again we can use the rules of the puzzle to place a 3 in the bottom box. It's going to have to be here, because if I put it in this square, I'm repeating a 3 in a T shape, and that's not allowed. So we get another digit, and we can pencil mark 3s in that box. 6, 3. There must be a 2 in one of those squares. And that's my pregnant pause, and when I haven't actually got a clue what I'm about to say, I'm trying to buy for time. 2, 6. 3, 6 here. This 1, look, we're going to be able to place a 1 up there. Oh, and that's nice, because now the 1 must be in one of those 2 squares, but we know that a 1 can never be in a white square that is next to a T shape, because it would always be lower than whatever we put in the T. So this must be a 1, and we get a 1 in the T shape now. So we've now got a 1, 3, and a 6 in our T shape. And the 4 here means there must be a 4 in one of these 2 squares, which means this is a 4. And now we know this triple is 1, 2, and 8 in some order. We just don't quite know what the order is, but we can tidy up a couple of the pencil marks there. And because there's an 8 in one of these 3 squares, this square must be a 7. Aad Van De Wetering's puzzles are always they have a very tight path normally, so I'm actually quite pleased that we've got any start at all on this, because it's one of the things where you could be just staring at the grid for 20 minutes without entering a number. So now you can see we need to put a 7 in column 8, so that's going to have to be there. And these 3 squares are 4, 5, and 9. 4, 5, and 9. We can disambiguate that one can't be 9, because if I put a 9 in the T shape, I haven't got a bigger digit to put in the white square next to it. So there's a 9 in one of those 2 squares. Okay. This can't be a 4. Because of the 4 over here, look. So what am I meant to do next? I can see, look. Let's look at what we've got in this T shape now. We've got a 1, 3, 6, and a 4 or a 5. Possibly we could have a 4 and a 5. I guess if this is a 4 and this is a 5, that would be okay. But where can I put the 1 in this T shape? There's only one square that can be a 1. It's that square. So let's put that in. This is very, very clever. Look at this. We have a 4 and a 5 in row 3. So we cannot put a 4 or a 5 in any of those 3 squares, but there must be a 4 or a 5 in the T shape. So it's going to have to be in that square. Now, what does that tell us? I'm not sure what it tells us about the 4 or the 5, but it does tell us that these squares must include a 3 and a 6. So, is that helpful? So the 3 must be in one of those 2 squares. I feel like there's something I should be appreciating here. I've got 3 here. Maybe the 3s, these 2 3s help us, do they? So there must be a 3 in one of those 2 squares, and a 3 therefore in one of those 2 positions. Okay. So maybe you have to look at this square, perhaps? Let's just have a look at the options for this square, because, well, it can be a 2, I can see that. It can't be a 3. It could be a 4. At least I can't see why it can't be a 4. Oh, no, it can't be a 4. Of course it can't be a 4. Sorry. This square can't be a 4 or a 5 now, because if it is a 4 or a 5, I'd have to put it in one of those 3 squares, and that would break there. So that is... Oh, that's clever. Okay, so this is not 4, 5. It's not 6. Can it be 7? So if this is 7... Oh, look, no, it can't be 7. That's also very clever. Look at this, 7 here. Now this square has to be bigger than 7, but it can't be a 9. So it would have to be 8. Now this square is now a 9. So what do I put in this square? Nothing would fit in this square. I can't put the 8 or the 9 into this square. So actually, this cannot be 7, and it obviously can't be 8. If I put an 8 in here, I'd have to put 2 numbers bigger than 8 in these two squares. So, goodness, that is a 2. Right. So that means that these 3 squares are now 2, 3, and 6. I just don't know the order. But that gives me that this is an 8. That locks an 8 up there. This is brilliant. This is a brilliant puzzle. Now, these 2 squares have got to be 7 and 9. And, okay. 1s here and here mean there's a 1 locked into one of those squares. So therefore there's a 1 in one of these 2 squares. Now 2s also are interesting because I can't put a 2 next to this 4, 5 option because obviously it would be lower. So the 2 goes there, which also gives us a 3. And this is so beautifully put together. Now look at these 3s. I can't put a 3 here because that would be next to a 4 or a 5. So this is a 3. This is a 3. This must be a 3. Therefore that one is not a 3. Oh, and this is good. Now the 3s here disambiguate. Well, they tell us this can't be a 3, and that forces the 3 into the T shape there, which is also helpful. So we've just got 2, 6 left to place. Ooh, and here's some logic. Here's some logic for you. Look at this, row 5. So, what happens if I make this a 5? And I think the point that Aad is trying to get me to see here is if I put a 5 in here, I've still got to put a 4 in the row. And the 4 would have to be next to the 5 because there's no other places it could be. This can't be a 4 because this has to be bigger than a 6. So this cannot be a 5. This is a 4. Therefore, this is a 4 in its counterpart T shape. And now there's a 4 in one of those 2 squares. This is a 4 at the top because this one isn't a 4, so we get a 4 at the top. Must be a 4 in one of those 2 positions as well. 5, 9 here means these 2 squares are 5 and 9 in box 4. So these are 6, 7 and 8. Oh, and that's good because now we're going to be able to place the 1, look. In fact, I could have placed the 1 before looking at the 1s in the grid. I just missed it. So that's a 1. That's a 4. This is a 1. Let's remove the pencil mark option there. There must be a 4 in one of these 2 squares at the bottom. 1 here locks a 1 into one of those 2 squares at the top. That resolves the 1 at the in box 7 as well. So I think, I know we haven't quite disambiguated the 1s entirely, but we're doing okay. And you can see whether this is, well, if this is a 6, it would disambiguate it would tell us this was a 9. This square must be 5, 7 or 9. Got 5s here and here, so there must be a 5 in one of those two squares. The 3 isn't that helpful because it's not. We know the 1's over here, and the 2. I guess we now know the 2 is in one of 2 positions. But no, this is, I can do better. Look, these 2's down here help me, and this 2. That locks a 2 into that square. That is helpful because that forces this to be a 2. And now this is a 6. Now that 2 doesn't help very much with the those 2 squares, but never mind. With this 6 might do. It locks a 6 into one of those 2 positions at the top. Now the 4's we've pencil marked in here, look. We now know this can't be a 4, so the 4 shifts over, which gives us a 4 at the bottom. And, oh good grief, yeah, well, look, we've got 6, 7 and an 8 in row 2. So that square, which must be bigger than a 6, is a 9. And that means this is a 7 and this is a 9. 9 are locked into one of those 2 squares because we know there's a 9 in one of those 2 positions as well. We need to put a 2 in this box. This 2 tells us which way round that's going to go. So that's the 2. That's an 8. We've fixed all the 2's in the puzzle. And and this square, obviously the 6 sees this square and it must be bigger than a 6 and it can't be a 9 and it can't be a 7. So this square is an 8. So it locks an 8 down there. These 2 squares, that one can't be 9, look. So this one is 5. No, look at this column. We need to place a 5 and a 7. That square is a 5 or a 7. There's a 7 in the row. So in fact, that one is a 5. That one is a 7. This one is a 9. I'm not sure, but we could be on the home straight here. Let's see. So these 2 squares have got to be, is that going to be 5 and 6, which we can resolve. Must be a 6, one of those 2 squares at the bottom. The 6's marry up now. Look at that. So in row 7 and row 9, we've managed to lock the 6 in 2 different 3x3 blocks. So we know in the finished grid there'll either be a 6 here and a 6 here, or a 6 here and a 6 here. So where are we going to put a 6 over here? It's going to have to be in this square. It's the only valid square for it. So that gives us a 9 as well. Now this 6 sees that 6 at the top and rules it out. And that's going to allow us to place a lot of digits. A 6, a 1, a 5. That resolves the 1 and the 2 on the right hand side. And this one here has got to be a 7, I think. So this is an 8. Let's get rid of the 8's here. This is a 6. This one we can write in, hopefully, if I haven't made a mistake. That should be a 7. We need 5 and 8 to complete the column. That looks like it's working to me. Now we've got 8's locked into row 7 and rows 9, like that. So again, we can do the same thing. We know row 8 needs an 8. This is the only valid position for it. So let's put that in. Now we can complete column 6 with a 7. The 5 here resolves the 5 and the 9. These 2 squares have got to be 6 and 9, I think, and the 9 here tells us the order, and in fact it's going to resolve everything, because that 6 tells us how the 6's and 8's resolve over here. What a wonderful little puzzle that was. Not as hard as some I've had from Aad Van De Wetering before, but absolutely lovely to solve. I love that. I hope you guys did too. Let me know in the comments, and I'll be back soon with another edition of Cracking the Cryptic.